Okay, this is Mary Herron. I am getting ready to do my but my homework about 1775 links of the American War for Independence. The first question, how did British General Thomas Gage attempting to deal with the uprising in Massachusetts in 1774? First of all, he sent the British to close down the British harbor. Their goal was to disarm the colonists. His actions led to the colonists to create a militia called the Minutemen. Because of Gage's stern actions, it was the last straw that led to the American War for Independence. Explain Lord Dunmore's proclamation and impact on the colonies. He promised freedom to the enslaved and indentured servants if they remained loyal to England. What this caused friction between the landowners and the slaves. So the slaves, in order to get the freedom, they wanted to basically brought alliance with the British. Number 3, according to Thomas Paine, what is republicanism and what is the role of popular sovereignty? Because of the absence of a sovereign leader, there was no leader such as the king. The majority needed representation. This type of representation is called a republic. He believes that the elected representatives are elected by the majority of vote, which is almost common in today's politics. 4, what is the fundamental contradiction in the American Revolution does the Declaration of Independence reveal? The reason why they wanted freedom. However, the Americans or the colonists, they were slave owners. So this was a contradiction. Great example of that, Thomas Jefferson, Washington owned slaves. 6.2, describe British strategy in the middle colonies and explain whether or not it succeeded. The British were basically trying to separate the colonies from New England by pretty much starving them into submission. He tried to keep the colonists from having any goods. Instead of surrendering, the British was hoping that the Americans would surrender. No, this actually kind of pushed them over the edge, saying, nope, we need to have Declaration of Independence. Number 2, what was the Battle of Saratoga considered the turning point of the war? This is where actually the colonists actually joined forces with France, and with France, with their manpower and with their resources, it in turn helped defeat the Americans against the British. 6.3, describe the British Southern strategy and its results. The British wanted the people that were loyal to Britain, slaves and Indians, to unite to fight against the colonists. Initially, this worked. However, it's kind of backfired because you realize they didn't have to win in one single battle, and because the British troops were sparse and isolated, it kind of divided them, and the colonist troops basically split off, and they invaded the British, and it worked. Number 2, in your opinion, how did the colonists manage to triumph in the battle for independence despite Great Britain's military might? If any of these factors have been different, how might have it affected the outcome? I feel that one of the reasons why the colonists were able to defeat the British because they put aside their differences and allied with the French and the Spanish and other countries like the Dutch. With all of them, they were united and they beat the British. However, if the colonists did not have this support with their allies, I don't think they would have been able to defeat the British because of the resources that they had. 6.4, who were loyalists and how many have estimated to be existed, and how were they treated during the war, and how happened when the war ended? The loyalists were royal officials and merchants that had ties to Great Britain. It made about 1/3 of the American British. During the war, the colonists seized the property that they own, and those who refused to give up the property, the loyalists were actually placed in prison. Now, after the war, many of the loyalists went back to England, or they moved to Canada, or even to the British Indies. And when they moved to the British Indies, they actually moved their slaves with them. 2. What was the impact of the revolution on enslaved people? Those who were loyal to the British left the United States and moved back to Africa or Canada. This was the largest revolt against the slaves against the colonists up until the Civil War. And the last question, what role did the Native Americans play, and what was the outcome? During the war, the natives, especially the Mohawk and Creek, they sided in with the British. The British moved 6 nations up to Canada. However, after the war, the British did not keep the promises to the Indian nation and let them down. Well, anyway, I hope this went well. I hope you have a great one. Thank you. Bye.